Kartarpur History. The story of the Kartarpur Corridor is not one of concrete and steel, but of prayer, patience, and a profound, unshakable faith that spanned generations. To truly understand its significance, we must go back over 5 centuries to the very origins of Sikhism and its founder, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He was a revolutionary spiritual teacher, a beacon of monotheism, equality, and selfless service in a time of deep social and religious division. For over 2 decades, he traveled thousands of miles on foot, from Tibet to Sri Lanka, from Mecca to Baghdad, sharing his message of Ik Onkar, the oneness of God and the unity of all humanity. But after his epic journeys, his udasis, Guru Nanak chose a small, fertile piece of land on the western bank of the river Ravi to settle down. Here, he established a community, a commune built on 3 core principles: Kirat Karo, to earn an honest living; Nam Japo, to always remember God; and Vand Chako, to share what you have with others. This place was Kartarpur, meaning the abode of the Creator. For the last 18 years of his life, this was his home. It was here that he farmed the land, solidifying the Sikh ideal of the saint soldier, spiritually enlightened yet grounded in the world of work and family. It was here that he established the foundational institutions of Sikhism: Sangat, the congregation, and Pangat, the practice of sitting and eating together in the community kitchen, or langar, without any distinction of caste, creed, or status. Guru Nanak himself, working in the fields, not as a distant prophet, but as a teacher and a farmer, cemented Kartarpur as the physical embodiment of his philosophy. This is where the Sikh faith was truly born and nurtured. When Guru Nanak passed away in 1539, his body was claimed by both his Hindu and Muslim followers, a testament to his universal appeal. Legend says that when they lifted the sheet covering him, they found only a bed of fresh flowers. This sacred ground, where his final essence rests, became the site of Gurdwara Darbar Sahib Kartarpur, the most revered shrine in Sikhism after the Golden Temple. For nearly 400 years, pilgrims could travel freely to this holy site. But in 1947, everything changed. The partition of British India was a cataclysmic event, a violent tearing apart of a subcontinent. Sir Cyril Radcliffe, a British lawyer who had never been to India before, drew a line on a map that carved Punjab in 2, creating the nations of India and Pakistan. This line, drawn with administrative haste, paid little heed to cultural, linguistic, or religious geography. The Ravi River became a hard international border, and overnight, Kartarpur Sahib, the place where the founder of Sikhism spent his final years, ended up a mere 4 kilometers inside Pakistan. The Sikh community, which had suffered immense loss and displacement during partition, was now cut off from the very cradle of its faith. A painful line drawn on a map had created a spiritual wound that would bleed for over 70 years. What followed was decades of yearning, of what Sikhs call vishad, a deep, sorrowful longing. For countless devotees in Indian Punjab, their holiest site was so close, yet impossibly far. They would gather at the border, at a viewpoint in Dera Baba Nanak, a town on the Indian side also sanctified by Guru Nanak. They would bring binoculars, peering through the dust and haze, hoping to catch a glimpse of the Gurdwara's white dome. This act of darshan from afar became a ritual of its own, a poignant symbol of their separation. An elderly Sikh man looking through binoculars, straining to see a sacred structure just beyond a barbed wire fence. The daily ardas, the Sikh prayer of supplication, recited in Gurdwaras across the world, would often end with a plea for the Khole Darshan Didar, the free and open access to the shrines from which the community had been separated. Kartarpur was always at the heart of this prayer. The dream of a corridor, a special pathway to reconnect the 2 sites, was not new. It was a persistent hope, a recurring theme in diplomatic talks that often went nowhere, a casualty of the perennial hostility between India and Pakistan. Grassroots efforts, led by figures like Kuldeep Singh Wadala, kept the issue alive, holding prayers at the border and lobbying politicians. But for decades, it remained just that. Then, in 2018, something shifted. In a surprising turn of events, driven by a combination of political will and perhaps a moment of divine grace, both the Indian and Pakistani governments agreed to build the corridor. The announcement sent waves of euphoria through the global Sikh diaspora. After 72 years of prayers, the impossible was happening. Construction began at a feverish pace on both sides of the border. A state-of-the-art integrated terminal was built on the Indian side, and a bridge was constructed over the river Ravi. In November 2019, to coincide with the 550th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak, the Kartarpur Corridor was inaugurated. The images from that day are etched into the collective memory of the Sikh community. The first jata, or group of pilgrims, walking across the border without visas, their faces a mixture of disbelief, joy, and profound reverence. Elderly men and women who had spent their entire lives praying for this moment knelt down to kiss the soil of their guru's land. It was a moment of unparalleled emotional and spiritual catharsis. The first pilgrims stepping onto Pakistani soil, not as citizens of one country entering another, but as devotees returning to the home of their spiritual father. The corridor was more than just a physical path. It was a bridge of peace, a testament to the power of faith to transcend political division. It was the fulfillment of a 72-year-old prayer. Borders and floods. The opening of the Kartarpur Corridor was a moment of pure, unadulterated hope. It felt like a new dawn, a tangible sign that even in one of the world's most volatile regions, faith and shared heritage could triumph over conflict. For a brief, beautiful period, the corridor functioned as intended. Thousands of pilgrims made the journey every day, walking the 4-kilometer path in a state of spiritual bliss, their hearts full of gratitude. The pristine white complex of the expanded Gurdwara Darbar Sahib welcomed them with open arms, a sanctuary of peace standing in stark contrast to the heavily militarized border they had just crossed. But this beacon of hope was built on fragile ground, both literally and geopolitically. The very factors that made its existence so miraculous, its location on a volatile international border and its proximity to a powerful, untamed river, would soon become its greatest threats. The corridor, a symbol of connection, was about to be tested by the powerful forces of division and devastation. First, let's address the ever-present political reality. The Kartarpur Corridor is a unique anomaly. It is a thin thread of peace in a tapestry of conflict. The relationship between India and Pakistan has been defined by decades of mistrust, wars, and a perpetual state of high alert. While the corridor was celebrated as a significant confidence-building measure, it never existed in a vacuum. It has always been subject to the political weather. Any downturn in relations, any cross-border incident, any inflammatory statement from either side immediately casts a long shadow over its operations. Security is paramount, and the corridor is managed with extreme caution. Pilgrims are subject to strict regulations. They must register in advance, they can only travel on specific days, they cannot carry certain items, and their movement is restricted to the Gurdwara complex itself. This delicate balance means that the corridor's future is perpetually uncertain. A major political or military crisis could lead to its closure with little to no notice, severing that precious connection once again. This isn't just a hypothetical scenario. We've seen how quickly diplomatic ties can be downgraded and cross-border travel suspended. The corridor operates at the mercy of the political leadership on both sides, making it a powerful bargaining chip and, tragically, a potential pawn in the larger geopolitical game. For the pilgrims, this creates a constant, low-level anxiety. Every trip feels precious, shadowed by the thought that it might be the last for a while. This political fragility is the chronic condition the corridor must endure. But in the summer of 2023, an acute crisis struck, one that came not from a government decision room, but from the heavens themselves.
The monsoon season that year was unusually ferocious. Across the Indian subcontinent, climate change is making weather patterns more extreme and unpredictable. The Punjab, the land of 5 rivers, is no stranger to floods, but what happened was on a different scale. Torrential rains hammered the Himalayas, swelling the rivers that flow down into the plains. The Ravi, the very river that Guru Nanak settled beside, became a raging, violent torrent. Normally a meandering presence, it transformed into an unstoppable force of nature, bursting its banks and inundating everything in its path. The land around Kartarpur, the fertile fields that Guru Nanak himself had once tilled, disappeared under a vast swirling expanse of brown muddy water. The sacred path completely submerged, the walkway that had carried the prayers and hopes of thousands now lost beneath the deluge. The damage was catastrophic. The approach roads on both the Indian and Pakistani sides were washed away or severely damaged. The bridge built over the Ravi, a modern engineering marvel and the backbone of the corridor, was battered by the force of the water and the debris it carried. Embankments designed to protect the area were breached, leading to widespread flooding that threatened the foundations of the Gurdwara complex itself. Reports and satellite imagery showed the entire landscape transformed into a murky lake, with the golden dome of the Gurdwara appearing like an island in a vast, desolate sea. The infrastructure, built with so much hope and at such great expense, was crippled. The pilgrimage was immediately suspended, not due to politics, but due to an act of God, amplified by a change in climate. The spiritual lifeline was, quite literally, underwater. This natural disaster is tragically compounded by the political situation. In a different part of the world, a shared crisis like this might foster cooperation. But across the India-Pakistan border, even disaster response is complicated. Joint assessment teams, coordinated repair efforts, and the sharing of hydrological data are all fraught with diplomatic and security hurdles. The recovery process is therefore slower, more fragmented, and less efficient than it could be. The floods have not only caused physical damage, they have added another layer of complexity and uncertainty to the corridor's future. The very water of the Ravi, which sustained the community Guru Nanak founded, has now become a force that isolates it, reminding everyone that this sacred bridge is vulnerable not only to the whims of men and their politics, to the raw, unforgiving power of nature itself.
Block 3. Reopening timelines. In the aftermath of the devastating floods, the joyful sounds of hymns and the quiet footsteps of pilgrims were replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by the gurgle of receding waters. The immediate question on everyone's mind was not just how bad is the damage, but when can we return? The answer, however, is woven from a complex tapestry of engineering challenges, financial realities, and delicate diplomatic negotiations. The path to reopening the Kartarpur Corridor is not as simple as waiting for the water to dry up. It is a monumental task that requires rebuilding trust as much as it requires rebuilding infrastructure. The hopes of millions now rest on the ability of 2 historically antagonistic nations to work, if not together, then at least in parallel, to restore this sacred connection. Let's first look at the sheer scale of the physical repairs required. This is not a simple patch-up job. The floodwaters didn't just cover the land, they scoured it. The primary concern is the structural integrity of the entire corridor, especially the main bridge over the Ravi River. Engineers inspecting the bridge's foundations is the first critical step. The force of the water could have weakened the piers, a problem that is invisible from the surface but poses a catastrophic risk. The approach roads, which were completely submerged, need to be assessed for erosion and potentially rebuilt from the ground up. Soil erosion along the riverbanks is another major issue, threatening to change the river's course and endanger the entire complex in the future. This necessitates extensive civil engineering work, including reinforcing embankments and possibly even dredging parts of the river. Beyond the main pathway, the support infrastructure is also in question.
Electrical systems, water purification plants, and sanitation facilities at the Gurdwara complex may have suffered significant damage. All of these need to be meticulously inspected, repaired, and certified as safe before thousands of people can be allowed to visit again. This is a multi-million-dollar undertaking requiring immense resources, specialized equipment, and a significant workforce. Official statements from both governments have been cautious, acknowledging the severity of the damage and promising to begin assessments. However, firm timelines are notoriously difficult to provide. The initial cleanup of silt and debris alone will take weeks, if not months. The full structural assessment will take even longer. Only then can a true picture of the required work and a realistic timeline for completion emerge. We are likely looking at a prolonged closure, a painful reality for those who had their spiritual journeys planned. However, as we've established, the engineering is only one half of the equation. The other, more unpredictable half is the diplomacy. Reopening a sensitive international crossing like this requires a series of coordinated steps and mutual agreements. Both sides need to be satisfied that the corridor is safe. This typically involves joint inspections, or at the very least, the sharing of detailed engineering reports and safety certifications. In a climate of deep-seated mistrust, this process can be painstakingly slow. Officials from both nations meeting at the zero line to discuss technical details is a necessary but politically charged exercise. Each side will want to ensure its security protocols are met. Any disagreement, however minor, can lead to delays. The reopening is not just a technical green light, it needs a diplomatic green light, and that can be much harder to secure. This uncertainty weighs heavily on the Sikh diaspora. For them, this closure is a painful echo of the past. After a brief, joyous reunion, the door to their guru's home has been closed once more, this time by a natural disaster exacerbated by political realities. The anxieties are immense. Will the repairs be a priority for both governments? Will political tensions flare up and derail the process? Will the corridor ever return to its former glory? These are the questions that fill community forums and gurdwaras worldwide. Yet, amidst the anxiety, there is an unwavering, resilient faith. The same spirit of ardas that sustained the community for 72 years of separation is being invoked once more. The belief that Guru Nanak's abode will once again welcome his followers is a powerful, unifying force. The Kartarpur Corridor stands at a crossroads, its future hanging in the balance. It is a potent symbol of how our most cherished spiritual sites are vulnerable to the twin forces of a changing climate and unchanging political conflict. But it is also a symbol of something far more powerful, the enduring human need for connection, for peace, and for faith. Its value is not measured in the concrete of its bridge or the asphalt of its roads, but in the tears of joy on the faces of the pilgrims and the fulfillment of a generations-old prayer. The path may be flooded, the future uncertain, but the hope it represents remains a beacon, a testament that even across the most troubled waters, faith can and must build a bridge.